Shalom and welcome to TBN Israel, the podcast. And guys, today we're talking about all the lies that you keep hearing about the Gaza Strip, the starvation of the Gazan population, the fact that people around the world are telling the lies that Israel is not bringing food into the Gaza Strip, into the Palestinian people there. And these lies that are being funded, spread, and shared across mainstream media outlets with multiple people around the world are basically defining the reality and putting pressure on Israel to bring aid to the Hamas terrorist organization. And that is actually making the end of this war a further step and not causing us to
not helping us
conclusion and win this war, you know.
The biggest conflict that's taking place right now in this region is a war of deception, not a war of soldiers. That's the reality.
Exactly.
Israel is fighting against an army of liars and deceivers. The conversation internationally has been hijacked, and I'm not exaggerating saying this, by pro-Palestinian and Palestinian-funded, and importantly, Qatari-funded outlets that are spreading disinformation. Yeah, they're intentionally spreading misinformation about what's happening in the Gaza Strip. This is not an accident. It is an intentional propaganda campaign. They've been drawing Israel out in an endless negotiation with no intention of actually negotiating in good favor, all with the purpose of trying to sell a false narrative under which Israel is starving people in the Gaza Strip. I'll save our viewers at home the entire podcast by saying we're not doing that.
Exactly.
It is a lie, and it's intentional, and it's orchestrated. And it's important to note.
Yeah, we went into the Gaza Strip ourselves to check it out and to see if Israel is allowing humanitarian aid to enter Gaza. And on Saturday, you're going to see this report. You're going to see piles and piles of food that is just sitting in the sun, waiting for the United Nations to bring it to the Palestinian people in the Gaza Strip, which they didn't do at the beginning. Now they're beginning to do it a little bit. And we have information that proves that only 12% of this humanitarian aid is reaching the Gazan population, and the rest is being hijacked by Hamas terrorists that then sells it to the Palestinians and hides it inside underground facilities, storage facilities, and that's how they operate. That's how they recruit new terrorists to their ranks from the ages of 13 to 16, because they promise them food, they promise their families food, and that's the way that they can provide for their families. You know, you can't blame these young people. That's the only alternative that they have. And sadly, the IDF is trying to provide an alternative to Hamas humanitarian aid distribution. How do you say these things that I'm doing?
Air quotes.
Air quotes? Yeah. I'm like, Hamas is not giving really any humanitarian aid. It is selling it to the Palestinian people. And the alternative that the IDF, together with the GHF, the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, is trying to create in Gaza is by directly giving the food to the Palestinian people. And Hamas is doing everything in its power. Also, the United Nations is doing everything in its power to make sure that this new initiative does not work. Okay? It's not perfect. It's very, very complicated. It is still a war zone. It's very hard to fight while at the same time provide humanitarian aid to your enemies. But this is what Israel is doing, and this is what the IDF is doing. And the Israeli Defense Forces are initiating and inventing new ways to get the food to the people. So a new way that was just started around a week and a half ago.
Please don't say airdropping food.
Airdropping food.
Let's give numbers here. First of all, I want to lay this out very, very simply for people. Global media. Before that, guys.
Whoever is switching this program is like going crazy.
Whoever is switching the show. If you at home have not yet subscribed to this channel, please join the 1 out of 2 viewers of this show and this channel that are subscribers. Make sure you subscribe, and then after you've done that, share this video and like it, because it helps get the truth to many more people. Now, I want to organize our thoughts, because we've said a lot. There's been an ongoing campaign accusing Israel of intentionally starving the people of Gaza. It has been orchestrated, it's been funded, it has a huge amount of media assets that are showing images of children that look like they're dying of starvation, and those are suffering children. Just in some of the cases, they're dying of completely unrelated diseases.
Other cases, they're not even in Gaza.
Yes.
Some of them are from Yemen, some of them are from Syria.
This has happened many times before. But the problem, and the whole idea is to get as much lies out there to shift the conversation away from the hostages, away from a negotiation and a ceasefire, towards stop Israel from committing war crimes in the Gaza Strip, which we're not. Now, I want to just encapsulate this in an idea. This has been happening in, let's say, the last couple of weeks. For 2 years now, almost, since October of, actually it's not true, let's say since December of 2023, Israel has been actively pushing goods into the Gaza Strip. That's a reality.
How many trucks?
Well, the number is 42,000 truckloads since October 2023.
1.1 million tons of aid.
I think the number's a lot higher than that. That doesn't make sense.
From October this year?
Yeah,
so it's October 2024.
Each truck has a few
October
tons.
2024. The numbers. Anyway, we've been there. There was an average. It's many hundreds till over 1,000 trucks of goods per day.
Yeah,
that's a real number. And then at times it's slightly lower because there's no one to distribute the good. Here's the real number though. Only one out of eight trucks that goes into the Gaza Strip actually makes it to people in the Gaza Strip. The other 7 are abducted by Hamas and Hamas-related, let's call them gangs.
Yeah,
that's whatever. They're terrorists. They're looted and they're sold. 7 out of 8 trucks that go into the Gaza Strip are looted and sold. I've seen it with my own eyes.
Me too.
You were there just this week, Yair. You saw it. We've seen the trucks that are going in.
Yeah.
The IDF openly says we have a huge problem, and the problem is no one is willing to distribute goods inside the Gaza Strip. And what goods are being distributed in the Gaza Strip by the GHF, which is an American nonprofit, the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, Hamas actively shoots and sabotages their attempts to distribute food directly to the people.
It also shoots the people that want to go and get the food.
Shoots the people, shoots the trucks, shoots the workers of GHF, and threatens people that are trying to receive aid.
Shoots grenades, throw grenades, it's not just bullets.
So much so that there's images from a couple weeks ago where people receiving aid say that in 18 months of war, they hold up the box and they say, this is the first time we received free aid since the war started. There have been tens of billions of dollars worth of aid that were sent into the Gaza Strip. Imagine that people have never seen any of that aid given to them for free. It's all stolen by the warlords of Hamas and then sold back to the people. That's the story. Yeah. Now let's start diving into the deception that's been taking place.
Okay, yeah, let's do it. Okay, so Hamas is not just a terrorist organization. It's also part of a wider ideology that seeks to destroy the Jewish people and to take over the entire state of Israel. That's in their charter. They are very proud of that. They teach their children in schools that they want to conquer all of Israel, that the only future that they have is armed resistance against the Jewish people, against the people of Israel, against the IDF. I've seen it in the Gaza Strip. That's in their textbooks, in their coloring books. That's what they teach their kids for generations. I'm talking about more than 20 years that Hamas is in control in Gaza.
But what did you saw when you got there?
What, into the Gaza Strip?
Into Kerem Shalom.
So we went into the Israeli side, the Gazan side of the Kerem Shalom border crossing.
Where you got into from?
We go into from the kibbutz Kerem Shalom in Israel, and you go inside the Gaza side, and in that side is where all the United Nations trucks are dumping the goods from Israel into Gaza. Then,
no, it's not just UN.
Not just UN, but all kinds.
No, many of them are Israeli companies.
Anyway, so they are putting all the goods there, and then the IDF makes sure that there is no weapons that is being smuggled into the Gaza Strip, and then the trucks of the United Nations and other humanitarian organizations from Gaza come, collect the goods, and then they are supposed to bring it to the Palestinian people in the Gaza Strip, but very, very fast, and we have images of it. It's not, it's not a secret. Hamas terrorists are just jumping on the trucks, stealing the goods, and not giving it to the people. And they also make sure that the people don't steal it because they have armed terrorists on the trucks protecting them on the way. what I've seen when I was there, and this is when I'm hearing all these lies about Israel is deliberately starving the Gaza people, and we need to help the Palestinian people get the food. And babies are about to die in Gaza if they don't get food within the next 48 hours. I've been there, and it was at least 4 soccer fields filled with tons and tons of humanitarian aid food, written in Hebrew, by the way, tuna cans, all written in Hebrew, sugar, corn, flour, and a whole section of tons and tons of baby formula, baby food that is just sitting in the sun and rotting because the United Nations and the humanitarian organizations were not sending in the trucks to get the food to the Palestinian people. And now you ask the question, why is the United Nations organizations are not bringing the trucks to give the food to the Palestinian people? And now comes the point of this big campaign against Israel, against the IDF, and against the GHF, that they are trying to promote this agenda that Israel is starving the Gazan population.
Let's play devil's advocate for a second.
What's that?
Red team.
You're Hamas?
I'm representing the other side. Not Hamas, the Palestinian people on the ground. Objectively speaking, and I think it's important to say this early in the podcast, there is suffering that is taking place in the Gaza Strip.
A lot.
And it's been taking place since the war started. The people of Gaza have been suffering. They're suffering because Hamas started the war, but they're still suffering objectively. And I'd say this more so in the last month, there has been a shortage of food. And we'll get into the reasoning for this. It's not that the food wasn't waiting to be taken in. It's that the food was not distributed inside the Gaza Strip. So there isn't, and again, I want to be very honest here, there's suffering that's taking place now that didn't take place before. In the past, for various reasons that had to do with where the population was and the weather and 100 different things, and what aid organizations were and were not doing, most of the time, most of the people had available food and available clean water. Now that's a little different. One, because the fighting intensified in some of the areas. Two, because there's an ongoing policy of UN-related organizations and other entities not to distribute aid in the Gaza Strip. So the image looks like this. You're on the border with Gaza. It's just an endless amount of food supplies that are waiting to go in.
Yeah.
And there's a choice made on the receiving side not to distribute the food to the people of Gaza and to create an artificial situation where even though this tiny island of land is surrounded by a ton of resources that can bring in food, they're artificially not bringing in food into the Gaza Strip. And they're creating a situation where they're losing the ability to have access to free food, free baby formula, the medication that they were receiving beforehand. And there are people who are having trouble getting food. The issue is, it's not the IDF policy.
Exactly.
And this is where it blows my mind. It's UN policy and Hamas policy, which are the same at the moment.
It's crazy.
Can you explain that? The connection between the UN, UNRWA, and those
the IDF says, look, we can't obviously distribute our food to the people or food to the people of Gaza. We're fighting an active war against them. We'll do whatever we can to make the food come to the border. Now bring the trucks from within the Gaza Strip. We'll allow them to enter safely. Now go distribute the food to the people. Try not to get all of it into the hands of Hamas. It's a bit over a month at this point, maybe 5 or 6 weeks at this point. Hamas has tied hands with the UN and UNRWA and several other organizations, and they come up with a never-ending list of excuses why they can't distribute the goods. We are afraid. We don't want to. The IDF is maneuvering in this region. The GHF is something. It's always a made-up excuse.
Yeah.
And the food, whatever. There's always an excuse to do this. One of the UN agencies was claiming that Hamas wasn't protecting their convoys anymore. And I looked at them and I said, come on, Hamas is the one stealing the convoys. They're the ones hijacking the convoys. So they create all these different conversations.
They paid in 80%
attacks.
They paid in the aid.
Yeah, they gave most of the aid to the hands of Hamas.
Can you tell how the trucks there look like? Because I saw the photos and I was shocked.
Yeah. Are you talking about the trucks that come from within the Gaza Strip to the border to get the aid and back into the Gaza Strip? I wouldn't want to drive these trucks because it looks like the scariest thing. The trucks are like reinforced with
rebar.
It's like what is it? Like
rebar.
Rebar and wood on the engines.
Yeah. And they have pieces of the body missing because it's like a scene out of Mad Max that every time, and look this up online if you haven't seen it, people. Look this up.
Truck is driving. And you have like a swarm.
Exactly, of people on motorcycles and jeeps and guys running from the sides. They're all carrying weapons in their hands, and they're shaking at them at the truck driver. And the truck driver almost every single time just stops the truck, puts up his hands, do what you want. I don't want to die for this food. And they hijack whatever's on the truck, or they tell him, "Come, we're going to our warehouse, unload it there, and leave," kind of thing. Exactly. And they do this time and time and time and time again, endlessly. That's what's happening inside the Gaza Strip. So I want to frame this. There is food. It was made available to the people of Gaza. And also the IDF allowed international aid organizations to distribute it with a few exceptions. And one of those exceptions, by the way, was recently where in some of the northern part of the Gaza Strip, there was a situation where there was intense fighting with some of the Hamas pockets over there. And the IDF needed to isolate off the areas. And they did prevent anyone from moving in and out of the area.
Makes sense. You know, what the IDF is doing now is fighting a terrorist group and also being in charge of supplying humanitarian aid to the Palestinian people that are part of this terrorist organization.
Yes.
So this is a very, very complicated situation. And at the moment, the IDF is deciding and freezing the fighting to provide for humanitarian aid to enter certain areas and also providing safe routes for the humanitarian aid convoys to reach the Palestinian people.
Yeah.
And on top of that, what you don't like that I said in the beginning, airdropping food. It's not a lot of amounts of food, but still, up until now, the IDF did not airdrop food into the Gaza Strip. But now, because of this campaign and, media outrage that there is starvation in Gaza, we are using our Air Force aircrafts to drop food to our enemies. This is what the IDF is doing. And still, the world is claiming that we are starving the Palestinian people, just to put things at place.
So it's
like to imagine Putin dropping aid to the Ukrainians.
Tomer, it's not like a good comparison because Russia invaded Ukraine and Hamas invaded Israel, not Israel invaded Hamas. So, but yeah, I agree with what you're saying. We are fighting an enemy state, like the Gaza Strip was controlled by Hamas for more than 20 years. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, we are delivering humanitarian aid to the people that launched the attacks against us, that voted this terrorist organization to be their leaders, and also, according to polls, will vote them again. This is what's happening. And it's very, very hard for the IDF soldiers to fight with one hand, and then the other hand would give food to the people that are fighting. This is what's happening.
Let's explain the evil that's taking place here. There's food parked at the border. And the UN has decided that the best organization they should align their values and behavior with is Hamas. And they're going to actively participate in denying food and medicine to the people of the Gaza Strip. And that's what they've been doing time and time again.
It's connected to money.
It's connected to, it's much more than money.
It's money, ideology.
It's politics and ideology. Yeah. Another way to say this is, and Johnny Moore, who's the head of the GHF, the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, he says the UN is playing politics with the life of the people of Gaza. He sort of comes and claims that the IDF is doing the best it can, and that the Hamas is trying to actively kill people as they're trying to receive aid from the GHF. But here's the story: is you have an aid organization, and they're saying, and Israel is saying, look, people here are willing to see the people of Gaza die and be denied food as long as it harms Israel, even if it's diplomatically.
And sadly, it does harm Israel diplomatically. Yeah. Look at what's happening. You have France that is stating that they would declare a Palestinian state. But you have the United Kingdom that is saying we will join them, and in September we're going to declare also a Palestinian state. What does that mean? I don't know even so they declare. Where is it going?
That's what we're fighting. That's why TBN Israel started, to fight those lies. The media today is running out the lies. We do it every day.
Yeah, sadly, since the beginning of this war on October 7, we saw that this war has been fought on multiple fronts. We have the physical front. We're winning. That's great. And then there's the front for sharing the truth, for sharing the information, and for people's mind. And this is the war that we are losing in, Mati. This is where we at TBN Israel have invested all of our efforts. And thanks to your donations, your support, and your prayers, we're able to do this every day for 660 days already. And even more. Sometimes we do it 2 times a day.
665.
So guys,
But who's counting?
especially now when Hamas is launching the campaign of lies against Israel, we are launching the campaign to stand with Israel. So guys, if you want to be part of the campaign to stand with Israel, share the truth of what's happening in this land, go to www.tbn.org/standwithisrael. Every donation will help us create more content, more videos. We'll send Mati or me into the Gaza Strip, into the northern border, into wherever needed to battle these lies and bring you the boots on the ground information of what's happening in Israel so that you'll know how to pray and that you'll get the true information and don't believe the lies that are being spread. I think this is the most important front that Israel is fighting now because the world is deciding the future of this land in the diplomatic arena. Sadly, they make decisions that affect our lives. Economically, geographically, and in the international sphere. It's very impactful.
It's more than it is. One, I think it's so important to note that people have stood with Israel, and many of the viewers of this channel and several other channels have done an amazing. It's not a job. They've stepped up to the plate, literally and figuratively speaking, to really stand together with Israel in this time. And do you want to show them people the plaque? Look, this channel before the war started, the YouTube channel was, what were we at, 140,000, 170,000 subscribers?
131 or 3, yeah.
Let's say it was a side hobby. It wasn't even like a thing that we did. The channel hit 1 million 4 or 5 months ago, right?
Yeah,
it was like it was the beginning of the year.
Whoa! Beautiful.
It took a long time getting the plaques.
Exactly.
I think YouTube was suspicious of all the Israeli activity. But we hit 1 million in the beginning of the year, it's a big milestone. I care about this most because it shows that a lot of people care about the truth of what's happening here. Mm-hmm. We're at 1.5 million already. We've gone beyond the million that this plaque shows by another 500,000. And it's 1.5 million people that chose to stand with the truth of what happens here in Israel. And again, there's an amazing team on our end that's been working hard at this. But really what matters here is the audience response.
It's you. It's you guys.
It's the people at home, every man and woman who's spent time consuming this content and sharing the truth to show that they care about what's been happening here in the country. And I feel very thankful for this. I feel deeply thankful for all the people that stood with Israel. And in this wave, to your point, Yair, there's a wave now of disinformation.
Yeah.
And what that wave did when it started traveling around the world, all the anti-Semitic governments and all the anti-Semitic and hateful people around the world, it gave them the excuse to come out of their holes and remind everyone how much they hate Israel and the Jewish people. Mm-hmm. And we've seen that around the world. It's almost an immediate response. It's what we would call a Pavlovian response, where they can't.
Pavlovian response?
Pavlov and the dogs. It's a famous psychology experiment.
Cool.
Where you condition people to respond to a bell or something. Here, the conditioning is Israel we hate. Israel we hate. You see these people around the world. Yeah. The minute they have an excuse, finally,
we can blame the Jews for everything now. Anti-Semitism rises up in places that has like 1,500 Jews altogether
in the country,
like Norway, for some reason,
And you see people come out of the woodwork around the world with these. Finally, we have an excuse to go back to hating the Jews.
Yeah,
really, that's what it is. Finally, the French, who are known for their love of disruption in the Middle East and love of Israel, Macron comes out, the president. Well, I think it's time now to recognize the Palestinian state. He has no intention of actually doing anything positive for the Palestinian people. It's all anti-Israel.
I know.
The UK government, same, all anti-Israel. That's what it is.
Yeah, unless you finish the war in the Gaza Strip, we don't want this war. Give us the hostages and this war is over. Yeah.
So you see this very interesting statement by U.S. Department of State where their spokesperson said yesterday, I guess, yesterday. And yes, they recognize there's a humanitarian crisis taking place in the Gaza Strip. The usual politeness of course we want people to stop suffering, and Israel says the same thing, and yet they say look, let's be honest here. If Hamas gives back the hostages, the whole war ends tomorrow. That's it. The war is over. And of course Hamas will not do that. They'd rather their people continue suffering. They'd rather their people starve. rather than actually give back the hostages and end the war.
And sadly, the world is buying into this campaign and this agenda of Hamas.
Yes.
That's all they want, and they are succeeding. And now that Hamas has humanitarian aid flowing back into the Gaza Strip because of this successful campaign, they have less chances of agreeing to a hostage deal, to a ceasefire agreement with Israel in the negotiations.
Yes.
The delivery of humanitarian aid was one of the conditions, one of the clauses in the agreement. Now they get it for free, without giving us any hostages, without stopping the fighting, without agreeing to any kind of ceasefire.
So how Qatar is connected to the whole story?
Oh, that's a great question.
That's a big question, yeah.
Qatar, we have an episode that we did on Qatar, and I spent like half a day talking to, I feel ashamed to admit I can't remember his name.
A professor for...
A guy who wrote like his whole doctoral thesis on Qatar. But
even he didn't understood Qatar totally.
it's so... Anyway, they're the biggest disruptor in the Middle East. And they're a country that's willing to, I mean, literally fund terrorism and aid to the same conflict at the same time.
Exactly.
Just so they can sort of come out on top and gain power. Qatar has been funding false propaganda and promoting false propaganda about what's happening there, mainly through Al Jazeera, which is a network owned by the government, but also in other ways. And you'll see waves and waves of influencers around the world spreading false media. And the problem is, it's once that lie is out, it's almost impossible to stop. Just yesterday, I think both of us, we put some stuff on social media talking about the fact that you have people inside. People were showing a picture of a Palestinian child who was suffering from, I think, cystic fibrosis. But the image was, the kid is starving. The actual opposite happened. The kid was receiving medical aid in Italy, and he was transferred there with help of the Israeli government.
Exactly.
And they were showing in this image, look what Israel did. Yes, Israel took him to a hospital outside of the Gaza Strip so he can receive medical attention. That's how big the lie is.
And the image does not show a kid being like this because of starvation. It's because of a medical condition that he had, regardless of this war.
Found him in Italy after.
Yeah, but anyway, then the international media outlets are issuing a week later this little article in the corner of the newspaper.
In page 28.
This is a correction to the report that was done before. The kid in the image was not actually from Gaza. He was from Yemen, he was from Syria, he was from a different place. And the damage is done. It's too late. These people, these media outlets already serve the purpose of Hamas, a terrorist organization. We did not say that Hamas is a terrorist organization, by the way. Hamas is an internationally recognized terrorist organization. It's not like Israel decide that Hamas is a terrorist organization. It's an internationally recognized terrorist group that millions of people around the world are going on protest and chanting their slogans and helping this terrorist organization, including communities like the LGBT community. That if they would have gone into the Gaza Strip, Hamas would kill them. And many other, liberal organizations that do not go eye to eye with the ideology of the radical Muslims of Hamas.
So let's take this to a practical place. People are watching this. There are lies that are spread around the world. How does someone who watches, who gets, someone sends them an image, look at this is terrible, there's a catastrophe happening in Gaza, Israel's starving these kids, here's an image. What does someone do when he encounters that information?
Well, that's a very hard thing, because when you see an image, automatically you go to the emotional side of you, and you feel sorry, and then you connect it with the words, Israel is starving Gaza. But you need to understand the truth of this information, like who is publishing this newspaper, who is funding this newspaper, and who is to gain for presenting this ideology. It's very hard, it's annoying, because we want to believe the news that we are receiving, especially when we're talking about, BBC, New York Times, huge outlets and respectable outlets. I mean, it used to be real journalism going on around the world, but now it seems like everything is ideologically, it's promoting an agenda, and it's funded.
So I watched a YouTuber I follow yesterday. He made a very interesting suggestion. He said, look, most people, when they encounter these images, they exactly what you described. You have a very strong emotional response.
Yeah.
And he says the only suggestion I can make, because oftentimes what we've been describing, the news comes out and literally hours later, a correction comes out and says, actually, this didn't even happen at all. And let me give you a teaser.
In a good case, if a correction comes at all.
No, but when it comes to the Gaza Strip, it's already a high deception conflict on the Palestinian side. The Hamas is already a deceptive organization that spreads lies consistently. And that's happened before the war. Now we're sort of in a turbo mode of that, where it's happening nonstop, constantly around the world in an orchestrated campaign, similar to some we've seen in the past, where there's this bombardment of global media with a false narrative that is all intended to shift attention. Because the real conversation should be, why does the Hamas not want to have a ceasefire agreement? Why do they refuse any kind of ceasefire agreement time and time again? To the point where both the U.S. and Israel have said, there's no point in negotiating with these people anymore. They don't want to negotiate. They're trying to perpetuate the violence. That's one. And he says something clever. He says, just wait. Instead of responding, keep the tab open or bookmark it on your computer and come back the next day.
See if it's still...
See what the report actually says then. He says, and you'll be surprised to see how many of the reports about what's happening in the Gaza Strip, especially, and excuse me for saying this, if you're following liberal media outlets, the BBC, who has a very well-documented bias against Israel, very well-documented, the BBC, several other of the UK-based papers, and many of the US ones, CNN, for instance, New York Times, go and bookmark it. Come back 24 hours later, 48 hours later, and look at the bottom of the article and see if there's a correction, or see if the text is different than it was the day before, or the headline is different than the way. You'll be shocked by how many times they retract the headlines that had 25 million views the day before. And the next day, suddenly we're not entirely sure that this even happened, but you were very sure when you
announced it,
and when you collected
all the views.
Collected all the views and the ad money. They were very happy to do that when that happened. So I'd say that's one important tool. And I say this because you should, and this is important to state, when you see a picture of, and the title says, suffering Palestinian child, you should feel empathy for them.
Exactly.
You should feel emotionally stirred. And you should feel the same, by the way, for a Yemeni child. And you should feel the same for a Sudanese kid, because there's an ongoing regional war taking place there too.
Or a Druze kid.
Or a Druze kid.
Syria.
Exactly. Or a Druze grandparent that's been shot in their living room for being Druze. You should feel empathy for those. And I want to tell people at home something else. If you don't, and the only thing that stirs an emotion in you is when the headline is Israel bad, they do bad things, that's the only time you get a response, you know what that means you are? You're an anti-Semite.
Or anti-Zionist.
But worse, you're also anti-Arab and anti-Muslim and anti-blacks and anti-Africans. Because if you only care when it serves a narrative of only Israel is doing the bad thing, but you don't feel any emotion when you see a headline, 9,000 people killed in conflict in Yemen, 5,000 people killed in something in Central Africa, and these things have been happening for months. No one even talks about them in the global media.
Yeah.
And I think that should be a test that people carry out. If you see the image and you only care when it's Israel the aggressor and the Palestinians the victim, that means you are a racist, because you don't care about everything else that's happened. And Israel, and I want to say this clearly, Israel should and is held accountable for its actions. And people who go against the law should be punished in the Israeli army and the Israeli government.
And they are.
And they are. And I can tell you, well, we can't say these things on camera. I know that this happens.
Yeah.
I've seen it firsthand many times in my military service. But that's one thing. But if you don't care about the others, you have a bias yourself. Exactly. If the only headline you care about is the one that affirms that Jews are evil, you're both an anti-Semite and you're also against everyone else who's suffering.
Exactly. Also, another very important point, I think that if the only thing that you care about is the hatred towards Israel, that you're under attack also on the spiritual realm here in this situation. We've been saying multiple times that this is a spiritual war. It doesn't make any other sense while the whole world will focus on Gaza and on hatred against Israel. We have millions of people around the world that are suffering, that are under attack, that their human rights are being abused, that are being massacred. But if the only thing that bothers you is Israel in the headlines, and that's the only thing that you care about, that means that this is part of the enemy, and this is a spiritual warfare against God, against the God of Israel, and the promises he made to the Jewish people in this land. Okay? So if you feel this and you believe in God, I would suggest that you pray and ask him to tell you what is true and how you should respond to these images and, what to do next. Because this is not just, information war. It's also a spiritual war in this case.
Yes, I 100% agree.
So this is very complicated, Mati. What bothers me most is that we had the Druze massacre in Syria, and it got maybe 3 days of headlines. It's still ongoing now. Nobody's talking about it.
Nobody can watch again. The photos came out of 7th of October. A photo of a lady holding a bucket with a sad face can change what happened on 7th of October, and the photos went out of there. So I will never understand the people falling for this propaganda.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Well, I don't know. It's very hard. Spiritual warfare, definitely. Maybe it's a good time to share our campaign with the people. It's a campaign about standing with Israel. And what we do in this campaign is we create more content to battle the heavily funded campaign that Hamas is organizing around the world to slander Israel. We're doing a campaign at TBN, at tbn.org/standwithisrael, to stand with Israel, share the truth, and encourage people to pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Yeah?
That's a lot. I feel this is such a heavy
heavy topic.
I want to take this one step further. If you want proof of the fact that this isn't about what's happening in Gaza, this recent, let's call it, wave of propaganda, it unleashed an unparalleled wave of anti-Semitic attacks around the world. So much so, and you'll see this, by the way, this is by different nationalities, different religions, where you'll see Israeli kids and teenagers are being attacked in cities in Europe. Sometimes it's by Muslims who are immigrants from Syria or something like that. And in that case, you say, okay, they were radicalized, et cetera, et cetera. Still not good, but but sometimes it isn't. Sometimes it's by the locals. And it's become a topic of conversation for the Israeli public. Where are these attacks coming from? And the answer is always, it's very practical. It's not about Gaza. It's about an anti-Semitic root that exists in the minds of people around the world, and they were waiting for the excuse to go and blame the Jews again. Exactly. You didn't see them attacking about other things. You didn't see them attacking about the war in Ukraine. They weren't angry about anything that happened in Africa, nothing that's happening in the Middle East. They never care about any of those things. But when there's an excuse to hate on the Jews in Israel, they're always there to protest and show people that they care.
Yeah. And I keep receiving these texts with questions. Are the IDF really shooting at people going to receive aid, Mati? What would you say to these people?
Mm-hmm.
It's very hard. It's very hard because, I've been in the Gaza Strip. Imagine being in a post and your job is to defend your area. The Gazan population know that they cannot come close to an IDF soldier because he needs to protect himself. So what Hamas does, on the one hand, Hamas is sending people closer and closer to the IDF positions to test the grounds. And also, if the soldier is firing at the people, then it will go, of course, to the media that the IDF is shooting civilians. Also, did you see the fact that every casualty in Gaza is a civilian? Doesn't matter if it's a Hamas terrorist, an operative. All the casualties in Gaza are civilian, innocent civilians.
You know what they also are mostly?
Well,
young men of fighting age.
Yeah.
Very surprisingly, everyone who's killed in Gaza, according to the Hamas, they're all civilians, but also the majority of them are men or young men in a fighting age. And it should be, if it was civilians, it should be distributed evenly across population. Elderly, women, children. But no, somehow the statistics...
Only young men at fighting.
Mostly young men are just arbitrarily killed by the IDF. Of course, that makes complete statistical sense. And of course it doesn't, because they're not innocent civilians. Mm-hmm. They're terrorists, and the IDF goes to extreme lengths, putting the lives of IDF soldiers. And we've always done this. Me and you have been in the army. If you start going back, I went in the early 2000s. 2001, I've been, inside.
Really? Yeah. Long before me. 2007.
So it's a long time that, been in the system. The IDF puts the lives of Israeli soldiers at risk to protect the civilians of our enemies.
I know.
And we've done so repeatedly for many, many, many years.
Also in this war?
And also in this war. There have been IDF soldiers, and this needs to be said, who have been killed because we didn't want to make the mistake of killing innocents on the other side.
Exactly.
More than once. More than twice. It happens almost every day. It's very important.
In my unit, the first 5 casualties when we entered the war in Khan Yunis, in the Gaza Strip, were because we were not allowed to open fire at a school, despite the fact that there were no civilians there. The population was already told to evacuate and to move to a different area, but we did not have the green light to launch airstrikes on the school. And from the school, Hamas launched attacks and killed 5 guys from the unit.
Anyway, so that's the reality on the ground. And look, I want to say this as we sort of sum this up. This is a very complicated situation. But what's been happening in recent weeks is not really related directly to what's happening in the Gaza Strip. It's an orchestrated and deeply financed campaign against the state of Israel, which is aimed at diverting the conversation from what Hamas has done and trying to create an equal ground between the attack of October 7th and what Israel is allegedly doing in the Gaza Strip. Yeah. One is true, there was a brutal attack on October 7th. The other is a lie. There is no intentional starvation or harm of the population in the Gaza Strip by Israel. Exactly. The two don't exist in the same reality. One happened and the other didn't. And Hamas, with the help of Qatar and many other anti-Semites and anti-Israelis around the world, are trying to substantiate that is a reality that we live in. And it is a false reality.
And also, Hamas is getting the credit and is being treated as if it's a democratic country with values, Western values, which in fact, it's a terrorist organization that does not care about the population in Gaza, does not care about international law. So one side is fighting by the rules, while the other is fighting without any rules whatsoever and getting all the support of the international world.
Yeah, I agree completely. And I think that the only thing really to do here is to understand that there's a battle also about narrative and truth, and people just need to keep sharing the truth because there's a whole lot of people sharing the lies.
Exactly.
And they're very unashamed to do so.
Yeah, and they're investing money in sharing lies. A lot of money. So I think that's why we are investing in quality programming of sharing the truth. Because you guys deserve really a quality show to know what's happening from Israel and to have, a good host, a good-looking host like Mati Shoshani and Tomer to present the facts to you guys.
If people donate more, maybe they'll get better-looking hosts.
Thank you and goodbye.
Cool. Yeah. So, guys, really, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for listening to what really is happening in Gaza. Join us on Saturday for the report on the ground, boots on the ground, ground report, Gaza. And make sure to like, share, subscribe. Thank you for everything. Hopefully, we'll get to the next level, which is 10 million. It's called the Diamond Plaque or something like that.
We will get there. Don't worry.
See you again next time, guys. Thank you so much for joining TBN Israel, the podcast.
Hello, this is Mati here in Jerusalem with TBN Israel.
This is Yair Pinto from TBN Israel here in Jerusalem. TBN Israel is keeping viewers informed with Israel-focused news, culture, and what God is doing in this land.
Support TBN